Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfic. This is the continuation of Swallow the Stars. This will be part 37, chapter 37, entitled Confessions of Sin. Izuku stares at the building in front of him and bites his lip as nerves reach their breaking point. Despite living with a pro-hero and being raised by two of them, for the last 3 years, Izuku has never been to a pro-hero agency. His auntie had invited him once to visit the radio station that doubles as his agency, but Izuku declined on account of his anxiety and not really trusting himself around sidekicks and radio equipment. And Aizawa doesn't belong to an agency. He runs his route independently, sets his own hours, and technically works out of their apartment. And as much as the building standing before Izuku doesn't look like one, plain brick red walls, tall reflective windows, no sign above the door, it's a real genuine hero agency, one that he's going to be interning at for the next week. Izuku is many things: anxious, traumatized, the technically unwilling host for an ancient and unkillable god, but he's not going to stand out here on the street all day when a hero beyond that door specifically asked for him to be here. Izuku's wanted inside this agency. He just doesn't really know what's waiting for him on the other side, and uncertainty has always been a deterrent to his confidence. But Izuku isn't a coward. He's punched bullies and stared down villains and backtalked the #1 pro-hero, so, steeling himself, Izuku takes a deep breath and marches across the street and inside the building, despite the fact that the churning in his gut is telling him to turn around and walk away. The immediate entryway of the agency is beautiful. Little old, sure, but it's clean and well cared for. The floors are hardwood, the walls are very calming dark blue except for the wall that's behind the reception area, which is a soft pastel blue instead, and the ceiling is high and dotted with recessed lighting. Izuku is left with a very distinct impression that he has somehow found himself sitting outside as dusk becomes night, and the stars begin to come out. It's lovely, and honestly, not at all what he had expected of an underground agency. The young man behind the desk smiles at him expectantly, so Izuku steps forward. He passes by a comfortable seating area filled with fabric chairs and a sectional sofa. On the other side of the space is a wall full of windows that stretch nearly floor to ceiling and provide a great view of the moderately busy street outside. "How can I help you?" the receptionist asks. Izuku snaps his attention back to him and rubs the back of his head in embarrassment for spacing out. Sorry, I'm Aizawa Izuku. I'm here for my UA internship with Jedha." After spending an entire day and a half going through his stack of internship offers and refusing to accept input from either of his dads in any way, Izuku had dug into his research on the ones that remained after culling the list. Jedha is not an obvious choice, but one that Izuku stands by. Aizawa had been curious about his reasoning, but Izuku had mostly shrugged it off as wanting to see a different side of the underground than what he's used to. In reality, it's more nuanced than that. The Starlight hero Jedha is a solo underground heroine who is signed to an actual brick-and-mortar agency that she wasn't involved with at all during her startup. She graduated from Ketsubutsu and had dropped off the radar for 2 years, and then suddenly she popped up in Hosu City when she signed to this agency, Dark Knock Agency. Founded and run by a now-retired Twilight hero with a quirk that Izuku would love to see in person. So why did Izuku choose Jedha when he could have gone with the #12 pro-hero Gang Orca? And Izuku can't even lie to himself. He'd been sorely tempted to do just that, but he hadn't for several reasons. Firstly, Jedha's fully underground. Like Aizawa, she's protective of her identity and her quirk, though not enough that Izuku couldn't find information on it, unlike with Aizawa, who had been a total mystery to Izuku when they first met. She doesn't patrol at all during the day. She runs solo missions that can eat up days of her time, and her routes take her through the more dangerous parts of the city because she wants to help. Secondly, her quirk is cool, but not destructive or hard to control. Izuku spent the entirety of his new life with his dads working on controlling Amahaki's power. He has that on lockdown, and the last thing he wants to happen in an internship is some pro-hero rubbing their nose in his business and trying to give him advice on handling a quirk that is not a quirk at all. He's more than happy with his progress on controlling Amahaki, and if he's going to do any practicing with that power, it'll be under the guidance and watchful eyes of the two pro-heroes who know exactly where that power came from. Thirdly, she's in Hosu, which is where Ida went, because Ida's grieving and is going to do something stupid. Call it gut instinct, call it a lack of faith in his classmate, but Izuku wants to be near enough that he can help if he needs to. Would Ida contact him if shit hit the fan? Maybe not, but Izuku would like to know, so that he can respond if he needs to. "Oh," the receptionist perks up, his smile growing broader. "Of course. Welcome to Dark Knock Agency, Aizawa-san. Follow me." "You can just call me Izuku," he says, bouncing on his toes and readjusting the strap out of his bag as he falls into step behind the receptionist. Maybe one day, when he's an adult, he'll get used to people calling him by his last name, but right now, Aizawa-san is strictly reserved for his dad. The receptionist smiles at him. "All right, Izuku, I'm Mori Yuito. It's nice to meet you." Mori-san leads Izuku up a flight of creaky stairs and down a short hallway lined with wooden doors, some wide open and showing off dark, empty rooms, while others are closed up tight. Before stopping in front of one of the closed ones, he knocks quickly 3 times. "Jedha, your intern is here." A few seconds later, the door is whipped open by a tall, lithe, dark-skinned woman with shoulder-length black hair that literally glitters, like the night sky, and deep red eyes that make Izuku feel strangely at home. Or maybe it's not so strange since Aizawa has red eyes when he uses his quirk, and red has always been Izuku's second favorite color, even if it does sometimes remind him of blood running down his arms and pulling on pavement and spreading like mist through the air. Stop. "Hey, thanks, Mori-kun," she says. The receptionist bows at them before retreating down the hall. With a smile at Izuku, Jedha folds her arms loosely across her stomach and props herself up with her shoulder against the doorframe. "I just got your finalized paperwork last night. Great choice of a hero name, kid. From what I saw of you during the sports festival, it fits you." Izuku can't help but feel pleased at the compliment. He put a lot of thought into that name. "Thank you. It's mostly for my quirk, but I feel like I can craft a hero persona around it easily." Jedha cocks an eyebrow, and her smile slips into something more like a grin. Bit toothy and just this side of wicked. "You still thinking about Image when you want to go underground? Gonna be one of those unders that actually talks to the vultures?" He tries to stop the laugh that bubbles up his throat, but he can't. He likes the casual way Jedha talks to him, like they've already known each other for a while, and it's not like she's more than 2 decades his senior and currently his boss. "Probably not. I just know what I want the villains to think of me." "Good answer." Jedha steps back into the room and holds the door open for him. "Go on and set your stuff in here for now. You bring some workout clothes?" With a polite bow of his head and a murmured, "Pardon the intrusion," Izuku steps into what he now sees as an office. There aren't windows on the side of the building, but the floor-to-ceiling mural of a night-washed city skyline is breathtaking, stars coating the sky above the streetlights and amber-lit windows. There is one desk set up, dividing the room into a work area and a rest area. The work area holds the desk, the 3 tall bookshelves, and, to Izuku's surprise, 4 filing cabinets. The rest area has a comfortable-looking chair, and a low side table with a lamp, and an instant coffee maker, a sofa that looks like it's primarily used for napping. "I did bring workout clothes," Izuku replies, on top of his hero costume, because they are meant to be getting the whole experience inside of the week that they're here, which means patrolling as well as paperwork. Izuku had brought along several changes of clothes, several notebooks, and a small first aid kit. At Aizawa's insistence, he'd packed a few weapons as well, 2 knives and his 2 tanbo, which he hadn't gotten a chance to properly use yet outside of spars with Aizawa and Hitoshi. "Grab 'em and follow me," Jedha says. "I want to see how you hold up against me in the ring. Give me a better feel for what I can help you with." Izuku does as he's told, setting his bags down on the chair and quickly pulling out his workout clothes and shoes. Jedha leads him through the building, back down to the main level, and then further into a basement area that's well lit and open. She drops him off at the men's changing rooms and then disappears. Izuku's the only one in the room, but he still seeks out a stall and changes in there, not willing to risk someone walking in on him. He knows that heroes have scars, comes with the territory, but he doesn't want to suffer curious eyes or field any questions right now. Once he's changed, he makes his way back into the open area of the basement, wandering around as he waits for Jedha. There's a caged-off weighted training area that stretches along the side of the room, and he finds a locked weapons room, sequestered down the only short hallway in the space. Pillars support the ceiling across most of the room, leaving the center free of them to house large square of mats that's reminding him a lot of Aizawa's warehouse gym. "You're not shy," Jedha's voice makes Izuku startle, but he doesn't whip around to find her, just tenses for a moment before relaxing again. "That's good. Curiosity's a good trait for an under to have. Lots of shit to get up to in the middle of the night, and a good nose and a keen sense of what the fuck is going on over there will lead you true more often than not." Izuku snorts. "My dad would say that's just my innate ability to find danger," he says, pacing across the mats and keeping his right ear toward Jedha. "But I've patched him up enough times, so I feel like he doesn't have a leg to stand on for judging me about that." Jedha approaches him slowly, sizing him up. "Your dad a pro?" "Yeah, underground. Not sure if he's comfortable with me spreading around his civilian name, but he taught me everything I know." Izuku shrugs, figuring that's enough information for now. He's not about to give away just who his dad is. Jedha's smart, and she'd piece together her own story if Izuku let too much slip. "Oh." She leans forward in interest, and Izuku can't help but watch in fascination as stardust seems to fall off from her hair and flutter to the floor. "All right, I'll bite. How come you're here, then? It's not a secret that the majority of unders run their patrols stacked with hand-to-hand combat more than quirk fights. If you got training already, why'd you pick me?" Izuku comes to a stop on the mats, just off of the center, faces Jedha fully. He can't tell her all the reasons for choosing her, quite literally over hundreds of offers, but he can give her something. You dropped off the radar after you graduated, he says. Or that's what most people think. But I didn't know you traveled to Korea and worked a case there. One that went deep and left you with baggage to carry. Jedha's whole posture changes from loose and relaxed to stiff and guarded in less than a second. There's a sharp edge to her red eyes that reminds Izuku of blood dripping from a knife. How do you know that? Research, Izuku answers, hands still loose at his sides. And some logical leaps and assumptions. I wasn't trying to dig up shit on you, but I had to find a place that could work with me. Not just somewhere to crash for a week while I got out of schoolwork. I don't know what happened while you were there, and I don't know the details of the case, but I know that you left, and that you came back different. He looks down at his hands, tipping his palms up. Though they're covered by black fabric, he can envision Amahaki's marks there perfectly. I want to learn how to live with it. His tone gets heavy and quiet, and something bitter twists in his gut that is distinctly not Amahaki. There's static in his head too, but that's such a constant now that he hardly registers it. I want you to teach me how to accept shit that happened and move the fuck on. He trails off and raises his head. There would be tears in his eyes, he thinks, if he had enough energy to spare them. Jedha, I'm so tired. Amahaki moves inside of him, restlessly winding from his ribcage to his spine. It's an uncomfortable sensation, but it's a welcome distraction. All at once, Jedha's defensive posture drops away, and she walks forward to lay a cautious hand on his shoulder. Okay. All right, kid, let's sit down. Izuku can only nod as he maneuvers himself to the floor, folding his legs beneath him as he goes. A silence creeps in around them for a while, and Izuku wonders if he's supposed to fill it in with his sob story, if he's going to have to spill his guts to a stranger, albeit one that he firmly believes he can trust. But Jedha doesn't ask him anything, and eventually she breaks the silence first. When I saw you at the sports festival, she starts, and there's a distant look in her eyes, like she settled herself firmly back in time to narrate that day from her perspective. My first thought was that you were a genius. Every pro knows how to break down the events that UA hosts, knows that they're testing in each round. You ace them with a level head and a calculating eye. Sure, some of it was luck, but there are a lot of people who don't realize that luck can be cultivated. You cultivated it, and that caught my attention. She sighs and leans back on her hands, and the shift away from Izuku's personal space relaxes the air around them, turns this into a conversation instead of a confession. And then you kicked ass in the first spar of the final event, completely without using your quirk. Fuck, up until the second spar, I was pretty much assuming that you had an intelligence quirk of some kind, so I was impressed, but I'll admit it, not enough to offer you an internship. My quirk made you change your mind. It kind of stings, saying that out loud. Izuku knows that in this society, strong quirks are more valuable and desired than supposed weak quirks, but he thought he'd done a damn good job of standing on his own 2 feet. Not the way you're thinking. Jedha assures. Izuku blinks at her and she smirks. When you used your quirk, it became apparent that everything else you'd done was natural talent. Just a big brain doing big brain things. That's rare these days. I wanted a chance to see you in action with a front row seat. A lot of underground shit is analysis, you know. Even if we have a full patrol schedule, we're often brought in as a sort of ears-to-the-ground person on cases. We get skills in the field that daylight heroes can't even dream of, and that makes us valuable. You already have that. She tilts her head, studying him. But it wasn't even that, really. You got this look in your eyes, those last few spars. Same look I see when I stare in the mirror first thing in the morning. Same look I see on a lot of jaded retired pros who saw too much shit and have to keep living with it. Izuku winces, and Jedha nods when she realizes he understands. He takes a slow, deep breath and lets it out through his nose. I've definitely seen some shit. I mean, my whole class has. The villain attack at the USJ was all of us, but even before that. He wonders how much he can admit to her without putting himself at risk of a crackdown from the Hero Commission. Probably not a lot. Even if she wants to help him, she might reach out to them because it's her job to keep people safe, and if Izuku isn't or hasn't been safe, or if he's got too much trauma to keep himself safe going forward, she'd be obligated to let people know. Ambiguous response as it is, then. It's heavy. Some days it's like a physical weight, and I have to drag myself out of bed. I feel like I'm lying all the time just because I can still laugh and smile and enjoy being with my friends and family despite everything I've done and everything I've been through. I get it, Jedha says in the softest voice he's heard from her yet. But you knew that I would, so I'm going to tell you something that I don't think anyone who loves you will ever tell you. Izuku's eyes widen, hands clenching into fists over his knees. Good. This is why he came here. He needs an experienced but still objective set of eyes to look him over for flaws and spit out the truth. Please. Instead of answering right away, Jedha pulls a necklace from under her tank top and holds the pendant in her palm except it's not a pendant. It's a bullet. This was going to be my out, she says. Izuku's breath leaves him in one big whoosh when he reads between the lines on that sentence. Yeah, kid. Believe me, dark times. That mission I went on was deep and twisted and long, and I walked out of there with more scars than just the ones on my skin and a gun, with exactly one bullet left. She tilts her palm so that the bullet slides off and swings down to hit her chest. But you know what happened instead? I walked. I disassociated. Sometime later I came back to my senses, in Japan, fully debriefed, staring at a man with an eye patch and a face mask, and this stare like he was seeing into my damn soul. She gets a faraway look in her eyes, and a small but honest smile flits across her mouth. I still remember what he said to me, and I think you need to hear it too. Jedha sits up straight and meets Izuku's gaze head-on. He's scared to hear it, but he needs to. Right now, he's drowning, and he has no idea which way is up, and he's afraid to reach out to his dad's or Hitoshi because he could just as easily pull them under too. He said, "You ain't got to put him down. You ain't responsible for burying him. But guilt and remorse got no business in a life moving forward. Your hands are stained, and you'll never get the blood out, but they still move, don't they? You gonna use those hands to give yourself one more ghost, or are you gonna use them to keep someone from getting their own?" Jedha holds her hands out and shrugs. It's not about moving past it, kid. Fuck most days. Not even about living with it. Maybe you fucked up, maybe someone else did, maybe shit just happened. You're alive, they're not. And it's shit, and it sucks, and it doesn't get easier, not really. But you're alive. And you know what you can do when you're alive? Izuku shakes his head, even though there's a whole list of things suddenly running through his mind that he hadn't thought of before. Hug his dads, kiss Hitoshi, spar with Bakugo, eat too much of his favorite ice cream, cuddle with Coco and Leo, laugh with Todoroki, watch the sunrise, enjoy a hot cup of tea, go on a real date with Hitoshi, graduate from UA, become a hero, swim in the ocean, watch the stars, talk with Amahaki, beg Hisashi to teach him how to drive. Jedha smiles, and it's gentle. A whole lot of good, that's what. He doesn't mean to cry, he really doesn't, but the tears are falling before he can stop them. Sorry, he says, trying his best to scrub away the evidence even as he can't seem to stop. Jedha doesn't reach out to comfort him, but she stays right where she is, in his line of sight, with a loose posture and a bullet, which is thoroughly useless now that it has a hole drilled through it for the necklace chain, resting against her chest. He hasn't confessed anything to her, but she knows, and she isn't tied to him the way his family is. She's not bound by love or any personal feelings that could affect her judgment of him. And instead of judging him, instead of finding him guilty and condemning him, she told him to keep living and to do good things with the life he has left. Izuku's not about to let her down. When he finally gets his tears under control, he feels lighter than he has in weeks. Jedha survived her mission and carved out a space for herself in the hero world, earning the respect of her boss and the other underground associates. Izuku's determined to do the same. Thank you, he says, scrubbing away the last of the tear stains on his cheeks. Jedha grins and smacks him jovially on the arm. Course, kid. Now, get on your feet. A few tears aren't going to stop me from kicking your ass from here to the end of next week. Izuku laughs, full-bodied and so fucking relieved. His chest feels open, his shoulders don't weigh as much, and he can't feel dozens of hands wrapped around his throat. He knows he isn't past this, knows he probably won't ever be, but he feels better now. That's as much as he could ever ask for. He finds his feet on his own, grinning at the feel of Amahaki shifting around inside of him as the god settles back into its usual position, draped along his ribs like a cat over the back of a sofa. It's so familiar now that Izuku can't help but find comfort in the weight of Amahaki's presence. Jedha takes up a ready position, and Izuku moves into his own, settling his body mass lower to make him sturdier and faster. Show me what you got, kid, she says. And if you can get me on the mat, you can call me Imai-san for the rest of the week. And she proceeds to kick his ass into the ground over and over for the next several hours. He never once gets her on the mat, but Izuku smiles the entire time anyway. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 37 of Swallow the Stars. Chapter 38 will be next, which will involve Hosu. Let me know your thoughts and reaction to this chapter, and as always, thank you so much for listening.